welcome to Corner Comics, your weekly comic book reading club. It is I, the Burkhoff. I'm your host. If you follow me on Twitter at BERKOUGH, you will get the reading list early, hopefully, usually a couple days before I'll post the comics. My friends and I get together, we share a bunch of comics with each other, then we come together and talk about those comics, those individual issues. Gentlemen, how you doing this Saturday?
Amazing and wonderful at the same time.
I would have to step down to be amazing. I am whatever that is up there, looking down on amazing, saying, "Won't you come?" That's how great I am. But thanks for starting to help me out. Thanks for that alley-oop.
Nice. As always, we've got Russ. Tell people where they can find you online.
I am on the Twitter at Walrus at WALLRUSS. I am also on BlackSuperheroFan.com. I am also on ComicCreatorsOfColor.com. And always looking for some input. So if you have something to add, see me there.
All right. And Emmanuel, where can people find you online?
All right, you can find me on Instagram at Emmanuel, spelled EM_MAN_YOU_EL. Also, you can find me at EmmanuelTheStory.com. I'll see you there.
Did we get, you got everything worked out then?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Okay. Very cool. All right. This week we've got two issues each. I don't know where 3 came from. Last week I knocked it down to maybe doing just 1 each. But yeah, so 6 comics total, 2 for each of us. My first issue is The Valiant #1. This is a comic that came out in 2014. Effectively, it is sort of like an Avengers take on the Valiant universe. What would that look like in the Valiant universe? My second issue is Thor, issue number 730, which is also the 4th issue in the current run. We'll definitely get into this one. This is the second time we brought this comic on, and I'm really liking it so far. Russ, what 2 are you bringing to the table?
I'm bringing Little Bird from Image Comics, and there's a lot to talk about, so I'll wait until we get to that part. And I'm also bringing Stealth from Image and Skybound, which I think you'll like.
Emmanuel, what 2 do you have this week?
All right, the 2 that I brought is Batman Damned. It's volume 1. Well, not volume. It's a 48-page issue #1, but it's 1 of 3 EC Comics. Also, The Man Who Effed Up Time. And I'm sure you can use your imagination for what effed up stands for. But The Man Who Effed Up Time. Talk about it later.
All right. You know what? I skipped it. We made an email address last week after we got done with the episode. Russ or Emmanuel, do either of you want to direct people where they can send their questions if they have any reader or show comments?
Remember, listeners, you can reach us at cornercomicsofficial@gmail.com.
Yeah, so last week we had talked about possibly changing up the format a little bit and seeing what people thought. I did get 1 comment, I think, on the YouTubes where somebody said maybe 1 issue a week would be cool, and then have additional topics after that. This will be your opportunity if you do watch us and you follow along. Send us an email, and then maybe we'll read the email on the show. Maybe that'll be the topic that we use. So if somebody sends us some good shit to talk about, we'll drop down to 1 issue and then talk about whatever viewer wants to talk about. But until then, let's go ahead and move on with the comics this week. So my first comic is The Valiant #1. Like I said, this is kind of an Avengers take on the Valiant universe. I still have Comixology Unlimited until the 18th of this month, so I'm trying to get in as many of those comics as possible. And I wanted to find something that had Bloodshot in it because the newest trailer for that looks freaking awesome. And I'm super excited to see Vin Diesel as Bloodshot. Um, yeah. What are your guys' thoughts?
Okay, well, I'm a fan of the Valiant Universe anyway. And I have been following them and their plan to basically overtake Marvel, at least in the movie genre, because they have their own universe. They don't have to pay Disney. And Bloodshot just started drop like last night. I almost went to go see it, but I went somewhere else. So this is a good uh, uh, initial come a time like any other, unlike any other, where all the heroes must arise and come together. Now, I know a lot of these heroes because I've read their individual books. All of them are not introduced as well as they could be
Yeah.
in this particular book. But it's not unlike, what's that other book we've been reading, 7 Days? If you may remember that
yeah,
one.
yeah. Same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So this reminded me of that. Now, I think the art was fitting. So the art works for me. And sometimes it's very descriptive and sometimes it's not so much, but whatever the mix is, it works for me. I do like the dialogue. And I like that the heroes that were introduced actually fit well and organically into the story, as opposed to we got to find a way to squeeze somebody in here. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then I also like the timeless hero conversation. So the challenge for me is that I'm already a fan of this of Valiant Comics and their universe. So it's hard for me to separate that from this book. But if you're interested in new universe, I think this is a good jumping on point. And I do like Jeff Lemire a lot. Actually, Matt Kent too. So those two were also selling points for this book. So I thought it was a pretty good book. What do you think?
Yeah, I like the art. The art was really nice in that it served its purpose. It serviced the story. And then the fact that I like the storyline as well. This mortal hero facing seemingly immortal villain. And then time and time again, you fail, you fail, you fail. And then now comes the time where, you have allies or potential allies who are equipped to help you out. So I like the story where there's this almost impossible problem, and then you find a possible solution, and will it work out? So the storyline was compelling to me, as well as the art was serviceable. It followed along the serviceable pattern. So I liked it. I like this pick. This was good. And Bloodshot is a character that I've never really was interested in, with the exception of the trailer that comes out. Will Vin Diesel live up to the hype? We don't know, because he's Groot, and he was. What was that one character that he was that had the weird eyes and like World Traveler or something?
Pitch Black was the movie, I think, right?
Pitch Black was the first movie.
Yeah.
Come on, you
Riddick.
guys are younger. Riddick.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I would like to see him revisit that universe.
That was interesting. That was interesting. So I'm interested in Bloodshot as a character himself. Will he get more screen time on the pages? We'll see.
Well, also, by the way, there is an ongoing Bloodshot book out right now.
Yeah.
So if he interests you, if you're looking for more, I think it might be issue 3 or 4, whatever. So there is something you could be reading. That's another thing I like about these group books, is that if you see any characters you like in there, each of these characters has their own book that is currently running, and you can just follow along with them. But yeah, I thought it was a good book. I liked it. I enjoyed it, and actually read the whole series because it's a mini series. I read the whole thing, and then I put it in Goodreads that I read it, so I get credit for a whole book.
It's I think it's only 4 issues total.
Yeah. So. I wanted to see how it resolved itself.
Yeah, it's a pretty quick read. So probably if this is something that interests you, then yeah, just run through all 4 issues for sure. All right.
Nice.
Cool. Moving on. Thor, issue 730 or number 4. I've been using the legacy numbering because I love that Marvel does that. It pisses me off that they keep rebooting these comics like every single year, and you got to start from issue number 1 every January. So it's nice that they're sort of carrying over the legacy numbering. But anyway, so the current run of Thor, he has become a Herald of Galactus. And I guess to give a little backstory, the reason that he's become a Herald of Galactus, there is this impending evil that has destroyed Galactus's original universe and has now worked its way into the 616 continuity universe. And basically Galactus falls to Asgard, and he needs Thor's help. And so Thor becomes a Herald of Galactus. In this 4th issue, they go through 4 planets. He needs 5 in order to power up enough to fight the evil. Well, actually, I guess they go through all 5 planets by the end of this issue. But yeah, guys, how do you feel about Donny Cates' current run on Thor?
I'm gonna go first, if you don't mind. So just gonna jump right into it. The art. I didn't know how much I liked the artist until this particular storyline. It made me fall in love with Thor in a different way, because I'm all used to like the mighty Thor and him being the son of Odin, and then him being like the All-Father himself. So now to be a herald, Thor as a herald, I think he's a better herald than the Silver Surfer, in my honest, humble opinion. Because
it makes him better.
He has more motives. He's already has a backstory. So he's a rich character in and of himself. But then you place him as the herald of Galactus. He was not necessarily, well, in this iteration, he's a king already. So he has this responsibility to all the 9 realms, to every planet. So he is their king, and now he has to aid in the destruction of their planet. So that's something that Norman could never say. He was a citizen of his own planet, just as everyone else is. But Thor is a king, so he has a responsibility to Galactus and to the planets, to the realms. So that conflict makes for a more interesting character, in my opinion. So that, and then
please continue.
That also combined with what happens to Loki. I don't want to spoil it, but that was an interesting twist. It's like taking these characters that we know and love to be a certain way, put them in a blender, and then mix them up and saying, okay, how does this taste? Like if you like this character, let's give him this, or let's take away that. And I really like that. These characters have been around for years and years and years. They have this same personality that's kind of bland, in my opinion. How many times can you say the same story a different way? But what happens if you give Loki something and give Thor something else? So it's interesting. I'm willing to go along for the ride.
Okay, so I do like the series overall. I have been following it from the beginning. I think what makes Thor more interesting as a hero is that he might actually be able to kick Galactus' ass. Because it's a whole power level. Like, we don't really know how powerful Thor really is, because there's no real measurement, right?
Right.
But we knew he was a certain level of strength, possibly one of the strongest people, straight up strength in the Marvel Universe physically. Then you add the Odin power on top of that, right? Which is now cosmic. Then you use the cosmic power on top of that, right? That what's the name gives him. Just how powerful can Thor just straight up wipe out Galactus now? What have we done? Have we made, because look, let's just be real, Thor's not that smart a dude. He's a caring guy, right? But that's a lot of damn power, right? Thor power plus Odin power plus cosmic power, right? And it might not even add on. It may be, instead of 1 + 1, it may be 10 times 10. We don't even know, right? Because we can't measure Thor. We couldn't measure Thor's strength when he was just Thor, right? Now when he's got Odin power, what's that strength level? Then you put on, cosmic power. What's that level? Over 9,000. I don't know what it is, but so the fact that he can balk at Galactus and say, shut the fuck up to Galactus, that makes him the more interesting herald. I do like his story. I don't know if you've been following the story, but the hammer has been heavier for him from day one in this story, and it's getting harder and harder to lift. But of course, now that his power is over 9,000, he could probably still hold it. But so there's something going on in the world, and then that also means that there may be something going on with Loki that we don't see coming. And is Loki even a villain anymore?
Possibly something to do with the way that the power cosmic has transmuted the hammer.
Ah, I like that. Poisoned.
Yeah, there's
Poisoned.
all kinds of stuff. Like, yeah, the scene where Loki lifts up the hammer in this book is good foreshadowing. That's even if Donny Cates moves on to another book and never addresses it, just having that in there for whatever writer comes next to do something with is
Heavy is the head that wears the crown. So could him being the Our Father now, or him being a king now, does that determine his worthiness? Does that lessen his worthiness?
Or does the hammer also have something to do with whatever need there be? Maybe he doesn't need the hammer. And the hammer goes. And then, of course, where's Beta Ray Bill's hammer? What happened to that last issue?
Yeah.
Stormbreaker.
All right. So, but anyway, I think this is a great series. I think it gives it to you visually. It gives it to you story. There are many levels and many layers, and you just don't know how it's going to turn out. And you don't know, if Thor can basically beat up Galactus, right, anytime he wants, right, then is Galactus now less powerful? Or is Thor so much more powerful that he's going to ultimately become the villain? And then what is it that he's actually having to fight that may even dwarf his power level now?
Well, yeah, so I was going to say the first issue, Silver Surfer basically shows a map to Thor of the universe, and this is like, these are the 5 planets that I've been hiding from Galactus. These 5 planets will power him up enough to take on this threat, and that's kind of interesting because what are these planets? And I don't know, through the last 4 issues, we've seen Galactus sort of go from being broken down and missing an arm to now he's like, very powered up and looks different. To have these 5 planets now powered up Galactus beyond what he was before, and now does that take him above what Thor's at? And yeah, it's kind of crazy. I will say also the end of one of these issues, I don't remember which one because I've sat down and just read all 4 again, but Donny Cates has a letter that he basically wrote to the fan base saying, becoming a writer for Marvel is you sort of lose the magic of reading comics because you're when you sit down every week, it's like, oh, where are my favorite characters going to go this week, and what kind of stuff are they going to get involved in, and he's like, well, that kind of dies. The magic dies when you're the one coming up with the stuff for the characters to go through. But he said that specifically writing this character, this story, he never lost the magic. And I was like, that's awesome. And I feel like it comes through because I've never cared about Thor. And to now sit down and be interested in what the hell is going on with Thor, and yeah, it's crazy.
It says a lot. So all you need to do is find that X-Men book there for our friend here.
I know.
That make him care about X-Men.
We'll see if it ever happens.
So, all right, Russ, your first issue of the week.
Okay, my first issue of the week, and I taxed you. I didn't say, are you true comic book readers? Are you true comic book lovers? This is called Little Bird. It's from Image. It, I think, is a lot to eat in one sitting, even though it is just one issue. It is not oversized or any of those things, but it is a lot. And I liken it to a book of heavy metal, an issue of heavy metal, where you can't really go through an issue of heavy metal without taking breaks because there's so much going on visually and story-wise. So I said, let me see if my co-readers in this club can follow along. What happened?
Man, you want to go first?
Sure,
That's because he wants to
sure.
go last.
The art itself, it reminds me of, and I keep forgetting this artist's name,
Frank
the All-Star
Quietly.
Superman. Yes.
Yep.
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 Frank Quietly. Now, I know you don't
Oh,
like Frank Quietly,
I see
but
where the hate is coming from
no,
now.
I like Frank Quietly. I like his art. It's very unique and specific. And then to see others that have sort of an element of him, it's familiar. That being said, the storyline itself, I thought I knew what was going on, where you have this girl in the village, and then the village gets taken down. Then the story just turns to this weird religious, political amalgamation of something. And it's hard to put my finger on it because it's like, are these celestial beings? Are these humans? Are these, I don't understand. I'm trying to grasp it. I'm trying to like really understand what's going on. But it reminded me of I haven't read the comic book, but I've seen the television series of Preacher. It kind of reminds me of that, where it has like these religious figures that are very political, but it fits with their religiosocracy and their political statements, their stance. They're following along that same pattern. And then you just have this, again, this village girl whose village has been decimated, and everyone she knows and loves has died, and she's searching for her mother. But then how does that fit in? And then later on in the story, like the two converge, and then there's this big hulking figure that I don't understand. I don't understand. So I think at the end of the book, I still was just as confused at the beginning, but I liked the ride. It was enjoyable because I still don't understand. I read more and got more confused, and it elicited an emotion from me, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. So this kind of reminds me of Aeon Flux in that it seems to be in the future. It's kind of hard to place the time of when all this is happening. You know that the main characters are in Canada, and it seems like the United States is devolved into this weird theocracy. But yeah, I like the storytelling and the way that happens. I like the fact that you get this girl's journey all in one issue, but it's not finished because the end of the issue we jump back 30 years. So we still have the potential to find out what happens to the girl before the village is decimated. We get the chance to find out how, if you're interested in like the theocracy and all that, the new Vatican City, if by the time the end of this book, you get a chance to be like, okay, they can go back through and sort of catch you up on what the hell is going on here. The artwork, I hated the artwork. I can't stand this style. But that being said, the story was still conveyed in a meaningful way. So even though I didn't like it stylistically, I think that it does the job, and it's not ugly or hideous or anything like that. It's just not. My preference would be to see it in a different style. But yeah, the dialogue was good. It's crazy weird on the Aeon Flux, heavy metal side of things. You've got a future theocracy, and Russ, you've got tons of murder at the end of the book. So there's that too.
I likened it to, say there was an hour-long episode of Samurai Jack. Samurai Jack could just be going through the woods, and all of a sudden there's a futuristic city, and crow heads on people's bodies with Christian crosses could start attacking him. You don't know what all is going on, right? But you see that you see there's something there, and if you wanted to go deep, there's something there to be seen. You know it.
Right.
You may not be up to receiving it, right? And then the next thing you know, somehow he's back in the past in the same issue or in the same episode, right? Finding the forefathers of this. To me, but all the majestic. So There's a lot of story here.
It's pretty
Right?
yeah, it's pretty deep. Yeah.
It's dense with story, and I didn't know if that's something you guys, because it's not a popcorn read,
No.
right?
Not at all.
It's not. Lucky it wasn't a graphic novel, and I make you read the whole thing. But I liked in that there was as much story as you can handle, right? There was never less story than you can handle. There was always as much or more story than you can handle,
Well,
right?
the way
I like that you can't. It's just impossible to predict.
yeah, the way that the storytelling took place too was interesting. I thought.
So it is a ride because you don't know what the heck is going to happen, right? And then every time you think you might have a handle on it, some new weirdness ensues, some new style ensues, and you're like, what the heck, right? But it doesn't stop the pace, it doesn't stop the speed, it doesn't stop introducing this. There are not a lot of books that you may want to consider going back to reading again because there are things you missed. And not all of the books that we present here lend well towards that. I thought this might. Like if you go back and look at it again, you'll be like, oh, I didn't see that the first time, right? And a comic book that keeps on giving like that. And imagine an entire series of that. Like you could have this in a graphic novel form, go back and reread it, and get some new experiences that you didn't get in your first read through. I thought this book or this series can give you that. That's one of the reasons I chose it. Of course, obviously, I like a good murder. And I like the fact that you don't know all, like it really does fill up your cup. Like you read this book, like if you read a comic book home and you read this book, you can't read your other comic books right now.
Right.
Because your head is full of this, right? And I think that's an accomplishment to me. So, and is it science? Is it sorcery? Is it religiosity? Is it time travel? Or is it all of them? Right?
Yeah.
And and what is it that shows up for you? Like you and all three of us can read this book and say, well, this showed up for me, and I can say this showed up for me, but we're reading the same book. So I feel this is a well-crafted tale in that respect. But that's just me.
In the show notes, I put as my final statement about this book. It's like a religious fever dream I've been having once every 3 months. It's just a lot, but appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, actually bringing up the show notes. Yeah, the prose that for the little bird, the little girl, that was some of the best inner monologue dialogue that I've read in a while. And I put one quote in here in particular where she says, the elders say that during our youth, part of us still remains in the dream. And then the next panel or the next dialogue box is fallen between the cracks of my soul, I had transformed. Like that's crazy. That's it was one of those where like I sat and looked at the panel and was like, okay, I gotta sit and think about this for a minute. So even though, yeah, like I wouldn't have gone through this book if I had seen it on the shelf and just picked it up, because the fourth page, I'm like, what is this post-apocalyptic Frank Quietly bullshit? but because Russ, you gave it to us for this week to read, and I was like, all right, I got to get through this. I found some stuff in it that I wouldn't have normally. So.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was a good gift. Shall we move? Thank you. So my next issue is Stealth, #1, 2020, Image and Skybound. Now, I am a fan of a different character called Stealth that I thought this was. There is a Stealth webcomic that I had been reading for some years, and I thought this was that, and it was not that. So, but I read it anyway, and without spoiling it, and this is Skybound. So, Skybound, everything they write is waiting to be a series, right? Everything you see the Skybound ever does is like, okay, they're trying to make a movie out of this. And by the way, I did already find online that I think they already have their director for the movie for this series.
Oh, wow. All right.
So tell me what you thought.
I can go first this time. I thought that this was an interesting superhero take on A Beautiful Mind. So the main twist of the issue is um, you have a father and his son. The son's the main character, we think, or could possibly be the main character moving forward. But you're sort of presented with the son sort of taking care of his father a little bit, and then interspersed are the panels of Stealth the superhero. I was under the impression all the way until the end that the son was the superhero because he works at the newspaper. He, like all these standard tropes, and then we find out no, the father is the hero, and he might not be a hero. Like he's insane. Like he's got some mental issues, possibly a schizophrenic, and that was really interesting to me. I thought the artwork was serviceable, not anything too spectacular, but good action, solid fluid movement to the panels, and good expression on the faces. Um, yeah, but the story just sort of really got me, especially towards the end. I don't know if I necessarily want to spoil the very end of the comic because it's pretty. It was gut wrenching almost. Like you get to the very end, you're like, oh shit! Like I had trouble finishing the last page because I just was like, oh that's horrible. Why did this happen? um,
Excellent.
yeah,
Go ahead.
but so I'm kind of curious to see what happens with this. I'm interested to pick up subsequent issues just to see sort of how they carry on the story and what happens. I'm curious to see if the son does eventually become Stealth or if the father stays the hero and maybe becomes like a villain. I don't know. They could take it in a number of directions, and I thought it did really good for a first issue.
Yeah, agreed. I really like the fact that I could see Falcon America. I could see I could see Falcon in a world where there's no other like Captain America. There's no other superheroes. It's just I think his name is Sam Wilson. If Sam Wilson had the suit and went out and there was no other Avengers, he would be called Stealth. I think he would be in this world. So the art, the style of writing, or the style of the art, I liked it. It was complimentary. And the story itself, I was blown back by the story itself because that introduces a real life element in that. What if the character, because I thought that Stealth was the son as well, the whole time. And then towards the end, you find out that it wasn't, it was the father. But what if in his prime he was, and the pillar of hope and just justice, doing things the right way. And then as time went on, he started to forget, he started to decline mentally, and he still has access to the suit, still has access to all those things. So why wouldn't he put it on again? If he believes himself to be all right, if he believes himself to be still in the proper state of mind, because you don't feel that decline. You have to be told by an outside source. You may forget, you may get confused, but you're still you, right? So that introduces a real world problem into this fictional universe where I really appreciate it because it's so, not that I'm going through that like personally in my home life, but it's just so close to home. I mean, what if? Because I mean, we all have parents, right? Or family members or people that we know that are of a certain age, and that could very well happen. Could very well happen to one of us, in later years, God forbid. So it is beautifully written in that it took me by surprise. The ending, the whole problem itself, it's well written. I really like it.
So for me, this started as this is a young guy take care of his dad who has Alzheimer's. Right? He lives in the house because grown men don't often live in the house with their dad, right? Unless they have to keep an eye on him, right? So you're living with a dad who already has problems, right? And often that you see as portrayed is people who have Alzheimer's often have a temper. And they don't want you to help them to get off me and they get angry easy, right?
Right.
So this to me presented as this is a dude whose father has Alzheimer's. Then later you see he works for the newspaper. You think, okay. And then you see the hero. You think, okay, this is, and I think this is already, I'm like, okay, this is a story I can follow. This is a dude who lives with his father to take care of his father who has Alzheimer's and also goes out there and fights crime. Right?
Yeah.
And then you see later on that he's kicking a little too much ass, right? And I'm thinking, and I know something was off, right? Because he's a little too much almost murdery, right? And I knew something was off, but you didn't see anything in the clue was there. You didn't see anything in the son's character that would make you think he would need to kick too much ass. That was the first clue that I think we didn't pick up on.
I just assumed that he was taking out his home frustration on the bad guys because that's what you do.
Okay. He didn't come off as a person who would use physicality that way.
But I totally glossed over it because I just figured, well, this is his alter ego. This is where he gets to be like that. Yeah.
And also, when you think of the future of this suit came from aliens. I don't know if he's just fantasizing, right? They're coming back. Because if the aliens come back, probably the old dude's not going to want to give up the suit. So does he become now a supervillain and they empower the son? And does the son have to fight his father possibly unto death?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do? Do you, because he's not going to stop, right? Right. What if you had to fight your father physically and he could not be stopped until you physically stopped him? What kind of emotion might that bring for you? You had to put up your fist and your father is literally trying to kill you.
Yeah.
How do you do? And I'm thinking there's a whole bunch of stuff that can come out of that because there was some emotion. We all felt something in this thing, right?
Yeah.
We all got some feels out of this. And it was just issue number 1.
Right.
Right. So I think there's a lot of emotion to be had here. I think, imagine if this was a movie or a series. Imagine what it could invoke on screen. Right. So I thought it was a good pick for that because, one, I wanted to see if you didn't see it coming like I didn't see it coming. And thankfully, you didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see what emotions sort of showed up for you. So this was not visually a feast, but in every other way, very much a feast.
I agree. I would say the suit kind of reminded me of Mantis. Shout out to the
Mantis
90s.
with wings. I like that.
Shout out to the 90s Fox show. So.
Too bad he didn't show up in the crossover between All Worlds. That's what we need to do is bring him back. Because the actor's still alive. He's old. We could bring back that show and have his son take over. Right? Why not? Why can't we have Mantis too? It's not owned by anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Mantis is such a good inspiration, I think, because I mean, like the whole thing is about strike and poise. So he could be somewhat of a Iron Fist kind of character. He's very zen, very in tune with himself. Yeah.
I also wanted to bring up something I brought up before, and that notice he's just a black hero and he's also a neighborhood hero.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. He's not out there in the tri-state area. He's in that city. Right. And everybody knows him in that city. Apparently he's been there for decades. But he's a neighborhood hero only. Would it have been different if he wasn't a black hero? Would he not, you know what I'm saying? Is that part of, somebody created this, right?
Right.
So the question is that do we think of black heroes, and we don't have to go dwell on it, as neighborhood heroes only? Yeah. Except Falcon and Black Panther. All right, that's all I got on that.
Emmanuel, your first issue of the week.
All right, so my first issue is Batman Damned, issue 1 of 3 by Lee, and I'm going to butcher the name, I think, Bernero, I think it's Bernero.
Bermejo?
Bermejo, yeah. And then Brian Azzarello is the story, the writer. So this issue, it takes place right when Batman, of course, he has gotten into some Batmanery. He is all banged up, stab wounds, and he finds himself in the ambulance, in the back of an ambulance. And the ambulance, the people that, I think they're cops too, but the paramedics, they're trying to treat him, and one of them try to take off his mask, and he gets out. That's not even really part of the story. It's how he got there, like what banged him up, what fight did he have, and then later on in the story, you find out that Joker has died. So why, how was because I think there's some memory loss as well, because that man really didn't go over what happened on the bridge, who did what, was there a fight between him and Joker, and then also it's narrated by Constantine, and then there's some supernatural element to it too, because Deadman's there. Let me know what you guys think about the story and the art. Really curious about it.
Okay, I'll go. Uh, I thought the art was moody and inviting, and just it just pulled me in. Regardless of the story, I felt like it felt like almost somewhat of a period piece. Whatever it was, there was sort of I don't want to say a smoke, a fog that sort of brought me into it. I found it to be very inviting. It was moody. It did pick. I knew right away that it was not Batman narrating only because of the word choice, right? I didn't know who it was at first, right? But you see a lot of contractions and all that, and things that Batman doesn't say, ways that Batman doesn't speak. So I knew it right away. I said, oh, this isn't Batman speaking. Somebody else. And, you find out later who that is. So, yeah, I loved almost every frame of this, the colors, the art. It was, like my word, it was a feast for me, right? Now, this, remember, is DC's Black Label, which means it can be rated R or not quite X. This was the book where you were supposed to be able to see Batman's dick. Like, this was where the internet broke over the fact that you could possibly see Batman's dick. I didn't see it, but I can see where they might have seen it. Maybe they changed it a little for the issue that we're seeing. Right? So this was what the claim to fame was for this book. What I also noticed is it seems like they were rewriting Batman's history, right? Like, is Batman's father cheating on his mother while Bruce Wayne is spitting over the bridge, right? What the, I don't mind people playing with the toys, but be careful when you're playing with the history, right? This is, you're not supposed to be letting him, be evil and foul, but it's Black Label. So it could be possibly out of continuity. I don't know. But I noticed there were things happening that were not in alignment with what I know Batman's history to be. But I liked it. It was just, it's hard to call this a ride because it was so moody. It's more like a ghost ride, right? Yeah. Where you were watching in and out of, whatever's happening, and you're seeing people puke and things you don't see in normal comics, right? You're seeing puke and grime and filth. That is very likely what Gotham would actually be like, that you don't really get to see. So I enjoyed this book. But again, the thing that stood out for me was the art. But I do like Brian Azzarello story. I did enjoy the story. It's just, for me, the art stood out more.
Yeah, the artwork in this guy can give Alex Ross a run for his money. I was completely blown away. I had no idea that it was going to be so well rendered. And the way in which the panels were put together, I think I put in the show notes that this is sequential arts 101. Like, this is a book that they would teach in college if that's what you were learning to do. Just from the opening pages, the way that the panels mirror the I don't even know what those things are called. The monitors, like the heart monitors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like the bottoms and tops of the panels on the first couple pages match that. The way in which each panel is framed and the action that happens in each panel, Um, the fact that the narration dialogue is different than what we normally see. It's not inside of a box. They changed it a little bit. Um, there's a lot here that's visually very interesting for me. Just the composition, the artwork. I love the fact that Constantine is narrating it. I think that he's slowly becoming one of my favorite DC characters. Um, and Russ, I get what you're saying about them like, sort of playing with the history, but there is the one panel where it says your original unreliable narrator, John Constantine. If he's telling this story, maybe it's not. Maybe he doesn't know, the history of Batman, and so you get a little bit of that. Um, I can still understand the ire, not wanting that to happen, but yeah, I mean he's a drinking, smoking, asshole. So maybe the way that he's telling,
Arse.
yeah, maybe the way that he's telling the story is not necessarily the way that happened or anything like that, but it's his take on it. Um, it was a little long. I thought, by the time I got to the point where we're introduced to the girl, um, the demon girl that holds up the bat in his dream, and we
Mhm.
finally and the issue finally ends. I was like, damn, that was long. But you warned us, Emmanuel. You did put that in the show notes. Like, sorry, it's a long one. Um, I'm kind of curious to see. I may read issue 2 and 3 just to finish it out. I'm kind of interested to see sort of what they do with Batman, um, and how because there's clearly going to be a conflict between him and the Joker, and I'm kind of interested to see what happens between those two characters. Um, and I guess getting to the point that I made earlier, it is John Constantine telling the story. So, how does he tell this, or like how does this happen in his head? So, yeah, overall, I thought it was good. Like this is absolutely stunning in terms of the artwork. So I kept going because it just page after page was visually interesting for sure.
Yeah, I was surprised by the actual veins you can see in the character's hands and the suit of Batman. You can see like the Kevlar, the distinction between the Kevlar and the cloth that goes over it. That's ripped, and just the amount of detail. I was very much impressed by the art itself. The story, it was good. I believe it was good, but I mainly was attracted to it from the art. The art is its own character, it's its own personality of the story. That's what drew me.
Yeah, there's one page where Deadman inhabits the body of a woman, and
Hmm.
you can see the nasty veins in her head and everything, and
Yeah,
then even in the boobs, like the cleavage, you can see this like these nasty
right.
blue veins popping out. The detail was freaking ridiculous. Like I don't even know how long it took them to do all 3 issues, and if all 3 issues are extended, this might have been a year project for somebody. Like,
Mm.
Yeah, even the bat suit itself,
yeah,
every little fold in the leather, every buckle, every under the tread underneath his boots, the buckles on the boots themselves, every line. There's so much detail here uh, that you really sort of get your money's worth on the art alone.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'll say about the art, the Deadman himself. I've always known Deadman to just have like the
the red jumpsuit.
gymnastics
Yeah,
suit on and then the blue. But the fact that it's his like muscles instead of the red suit, you see the ligaments in the muscles. Of course, he's dead, but that was very unique. That was a great choice, I think,
yeah,
with the exception of the part of the cowl or the cape that goes up, the collar that goes up. Like, how would that not be a part of the suit? I don't know. I don't know the logistics behind that. But everything else is like muscle fibers. You can see that blue or the red of them is muscle fibers instead of an actual red suit.
yeah. All right.
All right. So my next pick is by Aftershock, comic by Aftershock, called "The Man Who Effed Up Time." The artist is Carl Mozart, and the story is by John Layman. And I picked this issue because I'm a really big fan of time travel. I like the timey-wimey element of time travel, and I said this to a friend of mine years back. Just about every television show, movie, comic book that has time as the main character, as the main plot point, key me in. I'm interested. I like time travel stories because you can go through a whole storyline and then go at the beginning and redo it all, and there's infinite possibilities. So that's why I picked it. Uh, I don't think you guys liked it, but let me know.
I did actually like it. I didn't make a whole lot of notes. So my take on it is it's Bill and Ted's meets Groundhog Day.
Mm,
Right, it's the same
correct.
day, but it's the same day with like weirder and weirder shit happening because time is all messed up.
Hmm.
Um, I enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting. I don't know that I like the main character that much. He's kind of wishy washy, and um, how the hell did he become this
Time Lord.
yeah, this scientist to work on this time machine? Like that's crazy. Um, that being said, like there's so much that you can do because they immediately throw the rules out the window. You got people riding on dinosaurs, and then towards the end of the issue, you've got knights on woolly mammoths, and like it's it's zany is what it is. I don't know if there's another word for it. It's very
Good word
zany.
choice. Yeah.
Um, I had fun reading it. I don't really have a whole lot to say because there's just so much that happens, and it's so off the wall. I would say if you have no expectations, this is a great book to pick up and dig into, because there's I don't know. I didn't really have a lot to say.
All right. So I've already been following this book. So I've been in with it since issue one. I don't like the protagonist either. I think he's an opportunistic dumbass that, what if you're building a time machine and the janitor uses it and he's the janitor. So he doesn't know enough about time travel. He's an opportunistic guy that not even that opportunistic because he's not really doing much with his life that he could be doing. So here's a guy who's not really a likable guy, who's not really a go-getter, fixer kind of guy, and he fucks up all the time. There's no actual reason to think that he's ever going to be successful in getting this happen. If you use logic, he has to die, right? It's just, am I wrong here? If you're going to use logic only, and you end the comic book on the first issue, you shoot this child in the head, and we don't have the problem. You're already done. So the only way for this to be redeemed is that somehow whatever journey he goes through had to happen. Like out there farther into the future, he's the supreme being, right? But only by having this happen did he become that. So he himself cannot intervene. And you
Yeah,
find him king of the world. That's the only way I'd say this working. The problem is that there's no one that I can follow that I like. All right. Normally you have a character, and I'm just not a fan of bumblers, people who trip and fall and really don't know what the hell they're doing. And there's not really heroic or really a villain either. Just don't really have enough to do either well. Right.
Mm.
It's kind of hard for me to have interest or care about that character. And so for me, it looks great. It reminds me of Invincible artwork. I put that in the notes.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how it looks to me. But it's hard for me to say you should buy this book. I could say read it. It's a fun read, but I can't tell you to spend $4 or $5 on it. I can't tell you that it's worth it for that story wise.
Yeah.
But did I enjoy it? Yes. Is it going to be on my coffee table? Probably not. It'll be one of the other thousands of books I've read in the last couple of years alone that I'll be able to have a conversation with later. I like the idea of it. I wish I liked the character more, because then I'd be more interested in how he messes himself up even worse because you got to assume next issue he's going to mess himself up worse, right? Isn't that how this works? Right? And so in some ways, I like the craziness of whatever this crazy future looks like. You can't see that coming. But when you look at the plot, you know what next issue already kind of is. So that's sort of where I stand.
Yeah, I think a lot of stuff that deals with time travel, they usually have that one rule where you can't meet yourself. Otherwise, it destroys the space-time continuum type deal.
Yeah.
This one doesn't have that. It doesn't have like any, like I don't know if you guys ever watched Sliders, but Sliders had like consistent rules for like why each dimension that they passed into is a little bit different, or like why time worked the way that it did. This doesn't have any of that. Like it's really hard to follow the rules of the universe because there are no rules.
Because time is effed up.
I guess that would be my thing. Like I could probably stand him bumbling around, and it would be painful to watch this guy go through that journey. But if there were more rules in place of how he's supposed to navigate this problem that he's in, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more. But I mean, it's not bad. I would say it's a read. It's worth a read for sure. But I don't know that I could advise somebody to spend $5 on it.
Fair enough.
All right, gentlemen. Did we have any final topics? You had I think it looks like Russ put in some links for us.
I just put in some links on before Damian Wayne showed up in the comics, and I don't know if the Kingdom Come, they had a son of Batman that was actually Talia al Ghul and Bruce Wayne's son, and his name was Ibn al-Sufash, which is Arabic for son of the bat.
Nice. Okay.
And in that universe, in that future, he was not raised by, he didn't find out he was Batman's son until he became an adult, and then ultimately joined Batman. So this is a much more different kind of Damian Wayne than what they're portraying now. And in that universe, he married the daughter of Dick Grayson and Starfire. Dick Grayson, Starfire, and his daughter. They married.
That's weird.
And so that's an interesting pick, right? Because we got to keep all in the Bat family together.
Right, it's a little incestuous.
And then I found that there was actually a book where the son of Damian Wayne is an adult, and he's Ibn, which is son of the Bat, right? And he has the skills of Batman and the money of Batman and the powers of Firestar also, and apparently their entire books devoted to that. So then it made me think: is there any character that you would really like to see a far future version of, or a child of, that hasn't already been done?
That's kind of a good question.
I'll say this: there was once a time where Thor's Thor's son, I want to say in the whatever universe where Franklin made a new universe or whatever, Thor had a son named Magni. Wouldn't it be, because Thor is old enough now, wouldn't it make sense that Thor might have an adult son somewhere?
Yeah.
Right? And what if you're the son of Thor and you are never going to get the hammer for 1,000 years because Thor is never going to die, and you know he has a son because in that far future where you see his grandchildren, right? His granddaughters. So isn't it time? Isn't this a perfect time for me to have Thor's son to show up? Like, what do you do? How do you become great if Thor is your father?
Yeah, well, especially
And
now
Thor is
that
such a man child already.
especially now that he's he's Odin basically.
Mhm.
Um,
So I would think that would be an interesting way to follow. And what if they're trying to get into new Young Avengers and one of them is the son of Thor? Right? That brings a new interest level because you already got an Iron Man analog you could bring in the Young Avengers. You already have a lot of the other characters, right? You have a young Hulk in Amadeus Cho. You have any of the main, you have an Iron Man. We have a young Scarlet Witch in way because we have her son, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. We have her children. So all the heroes, we have Ant-Man because we have Cassie Lang. So all those heroes, but we don't have a young Thor. And I think it might be time. Now is the great time to introduce a young Thor. And what if he went a lot of his time talking to his uncle Loki? And what might that be like?
well, Thor doesn't have any time for him, so he's got to find some attention somewhere, right?
And Loki is always overflowing with advice.
Yeah.
Let's go, nephew. Let me show you a few things. Right?
Yeah.
The power of Thor. And then the question is he densely kind of dumb like Thor, or is he actually smarter? And then who is his mother? Because his what is her name? The nurse that used to run around with Don Blake. I forget her name.
Jane Foster.
Jane Foster. Yeah. Jane Foster is now Valkyrie.
Right. Yeah.
In her own book. So that could still happen. Or he can give Sif a little. Sif is sitting on the Rainbow Bridge now. Right. She ain't got nowhere else to go. Right? But what if he has been there all along and he is now a teenager? What if his mother never told him Thor was his father?
Right.
You can bring him in right now. So that is my own little, I made this up. What do you have? Who do you think, who do you like to see grow up? What new future version of a character would you like? There's nothing off the table.
So I don't know when the hell they're gonna finish this damn series, but the J.J. Abrams Spider-Man, I like Ben Parker. I think he's kind of an interesting take on that, and he might be an interesting Spider-Man.
I just don't know what special he brings other than angst.
Well, I guess you could do a lot with the character. I mean, right now, just the 5-issue run that they're supposed to be doing, like I think it's on issue 3, and I don't know 4 and 5 are TBD right now. I'm not really sure, but yeah, I mean, you could probably do a lot of him, working through not having a mother and his father being super emo with no hand.
Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, yeah, being Keanu Reeves. I don't know. It'd be interesting if Gamora and Star-Lord had a kid. Would that kid have Thanos power?
Well, Gamora is not actually she's not related to Thanos genetically. So, but would he be as dumb as his father? And would his father have to grow the fuck up in order to actually raise a dumb as rock son?
Or daughter, yeah.
Or daughter. They don't do dumb daughters very well. You don't see a lot of dumb daughters. You see dumb sons, but you don't see a lot of dumb daughters.
Yeah.
And here's the next question. Does Galactus have any offspring?
I was really surprised by what they're doing with his backstory of him basically being I don't want to say like a normal human, but a more traditionally mortal being prior to this the Star Plague or whatever. So yeah, that would be interesting. Did anybody else escape from Galactus's universe, or is he the only one? I can't remember if they said.
No, I'm thinking Franklin sets him up on a date and he shrinks himself down into a regular body. Right? And then, and what does the young planet eater daughter, let's make it a daughter, Daddy, Daddy, I want to eat this planet. Oh, darling. Why can't I have this planet? Oy vey.
Right.
Right?
Turn into a sitcom.
Exactly. But, you take any character that you like, right? And say, how
I'd be
can we spin
interested.
it? Like,
Be
because
interested
it's
to
all,
see.
I feel like there's too many spider people right now with all the Spider-Versians, right?
That's fair.
Even just on this planet, because we have Silk, right? Which we haven't really gotten into that much, who got bit the same time Peter Parker did, apparently, by the same spider. We have all the other spiders in the Spider-Verse, which is show we still have a Spider-Gwen, or Ghost Spider, as we're calling her now,
Right.
who keeps jumping over here from her other universe. So I feel like we're in Spider Glut. I feel like we have enough Wolverines. We have enough Bat people. Who do we not have enough of?
I
We have
know
enough
that he already has an
Kryptonians?
offspring, but Charles Xavier, remember he has that
Yeah.
from the animated series, he had a child, if I'm not mistaken. And he's only
Yeah,
limited by his imagination.
Yeah, David Holler.
That's what is that? That's
Legion.
What's that show?
Legion.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we also they've had some future situations where there's a future version. There's a Charles Xavier Jr. that came from the future. I remember that was a thing in the X-Men for a hot minute.
Yeah.
But I would rather there be more Phoenixes than Charles Xavier's.
So more Summers.
Yes.
Some more.
Well, no,
Frank
I mean
Castle
some more
had a
Grays.
Okay.
Huh?
What if Frank Castle had another kid when it didn't die, and that child was very opposed to killing, still had the very same abilities?
Well, Frank
was a
Castle.
badass.
Well, see, what makes Frank Castle abilities is the time he spent in the war, right? So whatever kid it is, he's not going to be able to hang with Pops in any way without actual training in wartime battle.
Well, you have a child and you're Frank Castle. You're not gonna want to raise that child. You're out here killing people, murdering people. Your life's too dangerous. So you send the child off to boot camp. That child gets fit and equipped with all the capabilities of Frank Castle himself.
And then how old is Frank now in this scenario?
I mean,
gotta be 60.
Because Galactus is ageless.
Yes.
You see, this is the challenge. I would rather say someone who was in the war with him, who was someone he saved, someone younger, who actually went through those things.
Like a Bucky Rogers?
Yeah, like a Bucky. I could see that. But you can't make Frank in his 50s because there's no way he's going to kick ass the way he kicks ass in his 50s. He's done at that age.
I don't know. He could be the Chuck Norris of the Marvel Universe.
Chuck Norris
just
is not
completely
Chuck
underrated.
Norris is not looking good these days. We're saying. I don't want to see him up close. You don't want to see him up close. But even if you think, 50, yeah, like I said, and then how old? Because in order for his son to have these skills, he's going to have to do military time, which means he's going to be well into his 20s at least, right? Yeah. Which means that, Punisher is probably going to be more closer to 60. And unless he's Cosmic Ghost Rider's Punisher's kid.
I mean, you have this whole universe where anything can happen. Like
you want to get parallel
stuck in a time. Yeah. Come on. We have all these things
you want an
at our disposal.
You want an alternate dimension on the Son of Punisher. Okay. Could be. SOP. Could be.
It's possible.
Okay, I'm not mad at that. I was looking for something a little more in this universe, but I get it. I can see that. What about DC heroes? Nobody who you like. We can't do Green Lanterns have all been done. There's too many Green Lanterns. Wonder Woman does have a brother, believe it or not. So he's there. Wonder Woman ain't having no babies you don't know about though. Right. So she ain't doing that. And what if Wonder Woman had a son? How would that even work? Because he can't go to Paradise Island. So who do you go? Do you go to the pantheon of just
Batman and Catwoman had a
child?
Apparently
I heard in the comics, I heard in the grapevine, Catwoman is pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, the original Huntress, I don't know how far back you go, the original Huntress in the DC universe was actually the daughter of Selena Kyle and Bruce Wayne.
Okay.
Wow.
That was the origin of Huntress. Her name was Helena Wayne. And she's on
all
Earth 2.
imagination.
Yeah, she's in Earth 2. And the Birds of Prey Birds of Prey TV show, that's who she was.
Okay.
She had cat-ish kind of powers, even though her mother didn't really have any. And she had a anti-establishment thing. So that makes sense. Selena Wayne is a real character. That could happen. We already have Damian. And can you imagine Damian with a little sister? Oh shit. What's that like with Damian with a little sister? You're 3 years old, you haven't murdered anybody yet. What the hell are you doing? I don't have time for this. Here's a knife. Stab something.
Oh, and on that note, gentlemen, we've gone for a full hour plus. Final thoughts for this week, and maybe anything we want to put into the future for next week.
I don't know. No holidays coming up. We could do something holiday themed.
No, I don't. Yeah. St. Patrick's Day. That's Tuesday.
That's this coming Tuesday?
Yeah, we're gonna overshoot St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, okay. Because I can't think of any. Like, what we do? We have to do something green themed or
Green
something.
themed. I would say so.
I don't know. I think all the holidays got canceled because of the coronavirus.
So basically, we need virus books then. All right. We'll work it out.
Until next week, this has been Corner Comics. I always leave a little on the tail end after the music plays.
Word.